Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and in this video, I am excited to share with you some amazing information about a little known plant called Quassia. Now, Quassia is also known as Quassia amara, and this is a plant that is a tropical rainforest plant. It likes those warm temperatures, it likes lots of rain, and it does not thrive in climates that get colder or freeze at all. So this is something I've never personally seen in its raw form or in its where it grows in its own environment. But I've seen many pictures of it. It's a beautiful shrub, and one of its most distinguishing features are these beautiful bright red trumpet-like flowers. They're just gorgeous. So this makes this plant, besides all the properties I'm going to tell you about, but it makes it a beautiful pollinator because these flowers are just so brilliant. They attract all kinds of bees and butterflies and all types of pollinators. So it's a beautiful plant that if you live somewhere where you can grow this, it would be a gorgeous addition to your yard or to wherever you live. So this plant has a very long, rich history. It's been used for thousands of years. In fact, it's got some really cool history about how it even got its name. So I'm going to share that with you first because this is something that I just recently learned about as I was doing some research for you on this amazing plant, because I've been using Quassia. It's the chips because it's the bark and the inner wood that you use in our Clarkia formula for years. So I have personally made a tincture out of Quassia chips and consumed it only in the blend with the other herbs that are in our anti-parasite formula. So what I decided to do after I was researching this is I decided I'm going to make a tincture out of Quassia just by itself, and I'm going to start playing around with it by just a few drops here and there because it's so good for digestion. In fact, one of the properties that it's most known for is because it's so bitter, it's so productive for your digestive tract. In fact, I found a fact that says this: the compounds in Quassia are actually called quasinoids, and it was named after that. And it's 50 times more bitter than quinine. So think about that, 50 times more bitter, and it's biologically active in super tiny amounts, which is really amazing, and it makes a lot of sense. So the history of how this plant even got its name is really spectacular and really beautiful. So here's what I found. One of the most fascinating things about Quassia amara is that its name comes from a remarkable historical figure. In the 1700s, a man named Quassia lived in a Dutch colony of Suriname in South America. Quassia was an enslaved African who became widely respected for his deep knowledge of medicinal plants. According to historical accounts, he used a bitter tropical shrub to treat fevers and digestive illnesses. And his remedies became so effective that European colonists began seeking his treatments. Eventually, European botanists studied the plant he used. In recognition of his knowledge, they named the genus Quassia after him, which is an extremely rare case where Western botanical science honored an African healer. I actually did not know that about this plant. I didn't realize that that's how it got its name, which to me, you have these historical figures in herbal medicine and herbal wisdom that is threaded through history. And it's so lovely when we acknowledge the deep connection with Mother Nature and the medicinal plants, when we acknowledge the people who honored this and helped humans learn how to heal from it. I think that's a beautiful story. Then I found this. By the late 1700s, Quassia had entered European medical practice, where physicians used the bitter to treat digestive weaknesses, intestinal parasites, and fevers, malaria-like illnesses. In fact, one of the things that modern scientists have studied it most heavily for is as an anti-malarial, anti-cancer, and for anti-parasite properties. And it's got a lot of really cool benefits. So I would just say if you live in a place where you can grow this, this would be a super beautiful plant to grow. Now, the part of the plant you use is the bark and the wood. Now, I found some really cool things because if you think about the bark, the wood, the inner wood, what's the difference? And I thought, well, I'm going to look this up because I think this would be something super, super fun to share, because besides the root medicines, you have like Pata arco is the bark. Una de gato or cat's claw is the inner bark. So while a lot of plants use the leaves, the berries, the flowers, the roots, I think it's so unique when you find these plants where all of their medicinal compounds are concentrated in the wood. Okay. So I found something really, really fun. The bark is the outer protective covering of the tree. The wood is the internal structural material of the tree. The sapwood or the outer wood, and then the heartwood is the inner wood. Now, here's a simple analogy because I thought, well, what is the difference here? Because a tree is a living organism, as we know, and it's so perfectly designed. But one of my favorite things to do is to go hug on a tree, because you can literally feel the energy and you can feel yourself ground just by touching a tree. So here's an analogy. If you look at a tree and compare it to the systems of the human body. Okay, so the bark is like the skin and it offers protection, which makes perfect sense, right? The inner bark is like your circulatory system and it moves nutrients. Okay, now the wood is like the bones and this provides structure. And then the sapwood is like the water transport system and it helps to move water. So it moves water up the tree, out into the branches, out into the leaves. So if you really look at a plant that provides the majority of its medicinal properties in its wood or its bark, mostly the wood part of it. And it's so powerful that even a tiny bit is used and is very effective. In fact, what they used to do is they would make cups. They would carve cups out of the wood of the quassia tree. It's like a bush, but they would carve cups out of this and they would put water or even alcohol into this little cup and let it sit for only a few minutes. And it would, the water or the liquid, whatever you put in it would absorb those bitters and you could drink it down and you would get all those digestive benefits. So literally you would have your cup, and it makes me want to do this. It makes me want to see if I can get some wood. Maybe they even sell them. I don't know. It might be interesting to kind of put my feelers out there and look online and see what I can find. It's really cool because this has been used and studied for a long time. And it makes perfect sense that my dad put this in his anti-parasite formula. So we've got green black walnut hulls, we've got wormwood, cloves, and we have quassia chips. So I used to always say quasi, and I never really realized it was quassia until I really just started thinking about it. Because I think when I was a kid, I used to just call it quasi. And I remember my dad talking about quassia chips. And now I've learned that the name of the person, this African healer, was Quassia, which is very cool. So across South America and the Caribbean, it was traditionally used for fevers and malaria-like illness, intestinal parasites, digestive weakness, appetite stimulation, and liver and gallbladder support. So you can make a tea out of this. You can make a tincture. You only need small amounts. In fact, many times when people are using this, they literally will put just a few of the wood chips into a cup of water. You can either steep it in hot water like a tea. I wouldn't suggest making a decoction where you let it sit for 15, 20 minutes because it is so powerful and strong. From the research I did, I would let it sit for about 4 minutes and play around with it. So I would love to know what you think about the amazing quassia or quassia and Quassia amara. Such a powerful, powerful plant. Amazing for so many things and documented over thousands of years of human health and human history. So thanks for tuning in today, guys, and we will see you in the next one.